You're listening to Dodge Movie Podcast. Your hosts are Christy and Mike Dodge, the founders of Dodge Media Productions. We produce films and podcasts, so this is a podcast about films. Join them as they share their passion for filmmaking.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to this bonus episode of our podcast. This is to celebrate our 100th episode, and we are so excited to have invited Superfan Lee, Superfan RJ, and newly Superfan Stacy to a round table, and we're going to discuss Joe versus Volcano. And this is a bonus episode because, as we said in the Joe versus the Volcano episode, this is a film that Mike and I connected almost immediately when we were dating because most of us had encountered people that hate this movie, and we both love this movie. So we just thought it would be fun to bring our super fans together, see what their take on it is, and try to see if we have compadres here. And I don't think we do, but we'll find out. So thank you guys for coming. We really appreciate your loyal support, your listenership, your sharing of our podcast, and we just consider you guys part of the family. So thank you very much. So what I want to do is I want to kick it off and go around the table. Tell us your history with this film. Have you seen it before? What was your take when you first saw it? And while you're kind of doing that in your mind, don't tell us, but be thinking about how you would rate this film on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the best movie you've ever seen, and 1 being blech. So don't tell us now. We're going to ask you at the end. But so, Stacy, why don't you kick us off and tell us your history with this film?
Oh, sure thing. So history, I did see it probably within the first year or the first year that it was released. And I just remember walking away out of the theater thinking, why did we spend our money on this film? I was excited about it because it had Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, but I just couldn't get into the film. That's my history with it. And then I, for this episode, saw it probably a week ago and reminded me, touched on the reasons why I didn't like it, but I did find a few things in it that I, redeemed it a little bit in my eyes. But in general, yeah, stuck with the original assessment.
Okay. I'm excited to hear what changed. Sure. So, Lee, go ahead. Tell us your history with the film.
So I saw this movie. I was trying to think of where I was, because this was early 90s, right?
1990.
1990. So it was post basic training. I remember as a young adult, I remembered the beginning of this movie, and I remembered the end of this movie. I did not remember the middle. Wow. And no, I didn't really care for it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't care for it when I saw it originally. More than likely, it was entertainment at training, right? On a post somewhere. I watched it again twice, well, 1.5 times, to prep for this. And it was kind of interesting what I thought of it in my memory versus what I pulled from it today, right? Completely different movie to me, past just the events in the movie, if you read into it, right? It made a lot more sense to me now that I'm over 50. So it was, yeah.
I can't wait to get into that also. Okay, RJ.
So I heard about the movie for the first time 14 days ago.
I love that though.
And then I watched it one time 2 days ago based off the date of this recording, and I did not like it.
Okay, so we're still alone.
And I'm shocked you like it, Mike, based off the movies that we've talked about that we dislike together.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point I hadn't even thought of. How does it parallel to Armageddon Day? I'll have to give that some thought.
You keep calling it Armageddon Days. It's Armageddon Time.
Oh, well, see, that's how much I like that film. I didn't remember the
name. Lee, I'm going to ask you, what were your thoughts of the film? And now you can get into, if you want, kind of your viewing today and your different perspective. Like, what stood out for you in the film?
Well, originally, my memory of the film was I remembered the beginning where he worked in some kind of crummy office. And I remembered the end where he jumps in the volcano and it blows up, right? I didn't remember the journey hardly at all when I watched it, it kind of came back, but in my memory, I didn't remember it all. And when you look at it, it's an okay film. I don't hate it. I'd probably watch it with somebody if it was on, right? Because it's Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. I mean, you're talking about two really good performers that made this movie at least watchable, right? But if you read it, this guy, I can vibe with this guy, right? I feel this guy. It's more about mental health than it is about a volcano, right? That whole movie is about depression and getting away from depression. And I read that right away. I mean, from the foot stepping on the flower to him picking it up, it was the only color in that scene.
Yes.
There's a lot of hidden things in this movie. And I think that's probably why somebody like Tom Hanks, although he was young and he wasn't very popular, but he knew his future. He knew his career. There was more to this than Joe versus a volcano. And that's what I took away this time, which is why I would probably watch it again. I think I didn't see it all. I watched it, like I said, 1.5 times. Yeah. I think it was a way more in-depth movie than I remembered as a young man.
Nice. I love it. RJ, Stacy?
I felt like this was filmed by two different people from a director standpoint. The first set of scenes felt more like watching,
Like
Brazil from Terry Gilliam. Is that what you're thinking?
no, Idiocracy.
Oh, okay.
So where it just felt like it was like this was a senior thesis project in art school, and like you had to look at the flower and the shoe and the how people were treating you and whatnot. And
I will say, RJ, I was waiting for the guy to run through it with the sledgehammer and smash the screen, right? That vibe.
Yeah, it's exactly like that commercial.
yeah, what was the question?
Just like now you have a chance to give your overall thoughts.
Yeah, I felt like it was like 3 different movies kind of pieced together. The first part of the movie felt like completely detached than the second part of On the Boat, which felt completely detached than On the Island. Mind you, there was a plot line that brought them all together, but from a visual aesthetic approach, and like there was no blending that brought the end to the beginning or the beginning to the end. Honestly, they did more with the steamer chests to bring the bits together than they did with the main opening scene.
Stacey?
No, I 100% agree with
What?
RJ.
You think that could
it's
be-
3 separate movies, or it's 3 separate starts of a movie, and or segments that were like kind of cobbled together. I think that, and it's funny, similar to Lee, all I remember is the beginning of the movie. I don't even remember the end of the movie from my first viewing of it, and that's where I get a lot of I feel the negativity towards the movie is because it was so depressing, right? The whole lead up to, to getting to the point where he's going into the office and all, and that it was just, oh gosh, and when I originally saw it, I was 20. So, it was one of those things that was, why, this is depressing. Is that what life is going to be like? Is that what, I'm going to get an office job and it's going to be like that? That sucks. That was kind of, probably my thought process back then. Now being older, I view that a little bit differently. I'm like, okay, I still didn't like it that much. And I think part of the reason why I didn't like it was Meg Ryan's character in that segment and Meg Ryan's character in the second segment. The two characters where she doesn't have natural hair.
Yeah.
I just didn't jive with those characters. They were kind of annoying. And the other thing that I noticed upon the review of it is the second section of it very much reminded me of Brewster's. Was it Brewster's Million? Is that with
Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor, yeah, where it's like here's a whole bunch of money you have to spend in this period of time. And it was a similar scenario in the sense, hey, here's all this money, spend it before you die.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
It was.
That was very much the 80s, the shopping montage.
Yeah.
That was a big thing. How do we spend a lot of money? Gordon Gekko. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was.
Right. So that's kind of, that's how, and I feel like I did appreciate it a little bit more from my older, lens than from my younger lens. However, it's not a movie that if it was on, I would continue watching it. It's not like a Shawshank Redemption that if I'm flipping through the channels and it's there, I'm going to stop and watch it, or any, other movie that I truly enjoyed and could stop and watch, or even for that matter, from a TV perspective, every time I'm flipping through the channels and there's a Law and Order, I stop at a Law and Order, even though I've seen the freaking episode 5 million times, right? It's just one of those things that I'm familiar, comfortable with, so I'd stick with it. This movie, no. Don't have that same appreciation for it.
Yeah, I have to say, both The Rock and Tokyo Drift, or the Fast and Furious, those are ones that you just stop for me, and I can't get past, and then I've wasted an hour. But I want to circle back to what Superfan RJ said about Armageddon date timestamp versus this movie. And I think the first part, Act 1, I'd say, is very depressing. But the difference, and the reason I think I like this, is he gets the girl in the end. There is a happy ending. And Armageddon daytime stamp, no happy ending.
Okay, I feel like I have to explain to the audience, though. If some of you remember, we did a local event where we went and saw a film called Armageddon Time about a month ago, and RJ came with us. And so that's what Mike is talking about when he talks about butchering the name of the movie, Armageddon Time.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he also didn't want the girl in the end because he would prefer to jump into the volcano than to spend more time with Meg Ryan.
Well, but they got married, and he was fulfilling his obligation. He said he was a man of honor, as we discovered in this latest viewing. He's a firefighter. I didn't know that the first times I saw it. I missed that part. So he was fulfilling his obligation.
Yeah, I was going to agree with you, and I was going to say he made a deal, and he thinks he's dying. When he jumps into that volcano, he thinks he's dying. And if she wants to go with him, and he resisted it at first, he said, no, don't marry me because I'm going to die in this volcano. And so I think he was like, okay, if that's what she wants to do. And so he was as surprised as anybody that it tossed him out and he lived.
Like volcanoes do.
Right.
Yeah.
Projectile vomiting you into the ocean.
We were just talking about buy the premise, buy the bid. That's right.
You really can't go into this film with reality.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Physics.
He has no brain cloud. This was a scam, right? Mm-hmm. So you brought up Stacy, Meg Ryan playing the 3 roles.
Yes.
So that is not usually done. It's one of the reasons that she chose this film, because she thought it would be a challenge to portray these 3 characters. And I can't wait for you all to listen to our episode. Part of me wishes I had had you guys listen to it before, so it'll be fun for you after we have this discussion. But I think I know what your answer is, but what did you think of her playing those 3 roles? Was it confusing? When you saw her the second time, are you like, is that the same girl? Is it?
It wasn't confusing. It was just annoying. Her first 2 characters were super annoying to me. I could not. I'm like, it felt like overacting, right? That's what it felt like to me. And it just didn't feel natural. So, and had the one character maintained throughout the movie, maybe it would have resonated more, but because they jumped to another character and another character, the one that felt more natural was the one at the end.
So if they had had 2 different actresses portray Dee Dee and Patricia, do you think that
I think they still would have been annoying, character-wise, but yes, I think I wouldn't have been as annoyed as.
Yeah, sorry, it was Dee Dee and Angela.
I think it was intentional, and I think it's exactly the reason why you guys are saying it's 3 different movies. Mm-hmm. I think that was exactly the reason why they had her play 3 different people, to make it 3 different movies.
No, I don't discount that it wasn't intentional. it was just freaking annoying to me.
So I think they want you to hate, obviously they want you to hate the first 2. To show, because he's changing. Mm-hmm. Every scene, the environment gets a little bit better. Right?
No, I just realized that, Lee. In the first part, Dee Dee is just as depressing as he is. In the second part, and Angelica is all about status and money and shopping and all that stuff, which is kind of that middle piece. He's spending all that money and kind of getting all the stuff. Like when he gets the violin case bar, I'm just like, how are you? What? You don't need that. I mean, so it's all about consumption, right? And then the third one,
Dee Dee refuses to sleep with him. Angelica wants nothing but to sleep with him.
That's a good point too. So I think it was
That's because he got a haircut. With the haircut, he looked a lot better.
got some sun, so he didn't look so gray. Yeah.
It almost plays like they're, I don't know how to word it, the ghosts of not
Christmas
past, present, and future, of your mental place, right? Because each person that she plays corresponds with how he is in each segment.
So it's a projection or a reflection of how he's feeling about
us
himself.
As an audience see it in case we can't read it, maybe. I don't know.
Okay, that's mind-blowing that it's a Christmas Carol. So now, like where people will watch The Shining with audio from other things, I wonder if I watch Joe versus Volcano with the audio from Spirited. Would that make more sense?
Perchance. I think, no, it's interesting because it's pulling spirituality or the spirit into this. It's you're getting back what you're reflecting, or you're projecting. So it's reflecting back upon you. So as he's projecting this depressed little dude that's going into the office that hates his job, hates his life, everything, this other chick that's just like him is like, no, I don't want to have anything to do with you. But then fast forward into the, hey, I got my hair cut, I look better, I feel better, I get to buy all this stuff. Then somebody wants him, and then I don't know about the third one, but
Right.
Well, I've got two conspiracy theories. On one of them, though, is on the Dee Dee, Angelica, and I forget the last one's name.
Patricia?
Yeah. So this movie came out in 1991, and Angelica reminded me identical to Jennifer Coolidge. Jennifer Coolidge didn't start acting until 93. What if Jennifer Coolidge saw this film and was like, that character needs to be me? And we don't know the real Jen Coolidge, that she's just playing Angelica off of Joe vs. the Volcano, and that's been her bit forever.
And it's working for her now.
Right, so she's sitting in her cheap apartment in Sepulveda, and she sees this and says, I can make this work. I can make this hunt.
Yeah, because 10 people saw the movie?
One of them being Jennifer Coolidge. I love Jennifer Coolidge, but I was like, why is she impersonating Jennifer Coolidge? And then I literally had to Google it. I'm like, this was done before she even started acting. Mm-hmm. What if this is opposite? Anyways, one of my conspiracy theories about this movie.
Okay, you have to tell us the next.
The next one is that I think this respectfully garbage of a script made decent money, and with Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks, wow, that they then were cast in every other 90s rom-com, because I was like, oh, is this Sleepless in Seattle or You've Got Mail or any other popular rom-com where it's those two standing opposite of each other as semi-interested people?
Okay, so now you've straight into my wheelhouse. Okay, rom-coms live and die on the female lead, and Meg Ryan was the queen of rom-com, certainly at that era. You put her in anything and it would work. And they found that Tom Hanks has great chemistry with Meg Ryan. Now he's a great comedic actor, and he's so likable that he's pretty much the perfect rom-com leading man. There was no way to not cast those two in every rom-com in the 80s and 90s. It just couldn't happen.
Think of how much time and money you've spent watching the same pseudo love story between the same actors playing semi-different characters, semi-interested in each other.
Okay, that's my other wheelhouse. You're now describing the entire Hallmark Channel.
Yes.
Agreed.
And I've never seen any of those movies. The Meg
really?
Ryan, Tom Hanks
Really?
Never watched a single one of them.
Dude, Lee. Not even
might
with
have to
Kate.
edit
Versus
that
the
out.
Volcano is the only time.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Just
I am
not my
shocked.
wheelhouse.
So we should probably admit that Sleepless in Seattle was our first date.
Nice.
Okay.
So, okay. Our next question is, this film had quite a few montages in it. We referred to the shopping montage. There was the fishing montage.
Walking to work montage.
Yes.
That wasn't a montage so much as it was
Boring.
the scene.
Well, there is the fishing on the boat with the hammerhead, but there is also when he was and Patricia or whatever was on the luggage. They had a
Third Meg Ryan.
montage.
That's the one at the end, the spa treatments
Oh,
at
right.
the
Yes.
end. That's
Yes.
what that is.
including the ever exciting octopus facial.
So, how
I was
did you
totally
feel
gonna
about that?
ask you about the octopus. Because I know you and the octopi. Right?
Yes. Anybody want to comment on the montage? Or are
I
we,
mean, I feel
we're-
like it typical like 80s, 90s montage scenario. I mean, you couldn't see a film without there being some sort of a
Right.
montage of something. This
Right.
one just had like 3.
3 films in one.
I'm curious. I'm going to look up the definition of montage because in the opening scene, it doesn't have dialogue. So I don't know if that with the song make it a montage, or do we need to have cuts to make it a montage? Like the shopping one were many cuts.
My head
I
went
feel-
there after I saw it, and I think it's a progression of time via cuts with music.
That looked like more choreographed dance.
Yeah, that's the reason why I don't deem the beginning of it a montage, because
right.
I feel like there's progression of somebody walking from the parking lot to the building. And maybe they're cutting to different people doing that, but it's essentially the same walk.
Yeah.
Whereas the shopping one was like different cuts of different shopping expeditions that they were doing and all compiled together with music.
Maybe you guys have said this, but does anybody want to comment on why you think that most people don't respond to this movie like we did?
Well, I don't think it could be made today and released today without with the same casting or without the major recasting. Like, for example, right now,
They'd all be really old. So
well,
yeah.
like no one on the island was actually Asian Pacific Islander. It's Nathan Lane.
Well,
Was that
so-
Abe Bagoda in there
Yes,
too?
it's Abe Bagoda. So they said in dialogue, which could have got lost, that a bunch of Jews got blown off course onto the island, which is why Abe Bagoda was the chief.
Right.
And they oy vey, and they play Hava Nagila.
Yeah.
But yeah, there weren't a lot of natives. It was a bunch of Jews.
Yeah. But like some of that was like campiness of the orange soda, and like I just don't think that
Even
could
though
be-
it's true. I'm joking.
I just don't think it could be released today with a positive reception. I think it could be released as like an SNL branded movie, where it was like campy and funny, but not as a rom-com semi-serious going to make millions, hundreds of millions in the box office.
One could say it wasn't released in 91 with a positive reception.
True.
We can attest to that.
I would not even, I mean, personally, again, all I remembered was the very first part of it when you said, hey, we have this thing and do you want to come? Yeah. And I was like, all I could remember was the very first like section of it and why I didn't like it. But because of that, I thought in my mind, how is this a rom-com? But I guess ultimately it is because he gets the girl and kisses at the end and all that fun stuff. But I wouldn't deem this or look at it as a rom-com personally.
Well, you've taught me that the rule of the rom-com is the lead changes from the beginning to the end.
Okay.
And what's that?
Because of the law.
Because of the love. And that definitely is the case because he is
it though? Because he changed in the middle and there wasn't the love with the chick at the end. You know what I mean? So there was an immediate change with the money and then mission, right? So that's why in my mind, or as you're saying this, if that's the rule, right? He didn't change because of her love. He changed because he had a new mission, right? And he had an obligation that he wanted to fulfill. It was just like cream on top with the cherry that he found this really cool chick that he like loved him, and when he was spit out the volcano, he was all there and they were
Again,
yum.
unharmed.
I'm gonna gently push.
agree.
I'm gonna gently push back and say that I think what it is
You can push back harder.
when he is on the suitcases and he's sacrificing the only water they have for Patricia, and he has that big aha with the full moon. I think that's when he realized there's more to life. Like, it's caring for another person. I mean, talk about what do they call it? When you just strip somebody down from everything except for the basicness of needs, because they were almost dying. He was clearly almost dying from dehydration in the sun and everything. And he cared for her and her needs. And so I would say that it was his love for her that kind of gave him the aha.
But he was already going to die in his mind.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So I get what you're saying, totally 100%. But I still feel he changed before he met her. And it was just that progression. That's all.
I want to say, I think love was the result, not the cause. The fact that once he learned he was going to die in his mind, right? Then somebody gave him purpose. And so that purpose is what drove him to, okay, I'm going to go frivolously spend this money. He didn't buy anything meaningful because he was going to die. So he just had fun. Got a haircut, and he felt good about himself. And then that led to this journey to the island. And once he discovered that he felt good about himself, instead of feeling bad about himself, then love came. Right? Mm-hmm. So then love was the result, not the cause. The cause was the fact that he had a journey, a mission, an obligation, something to do. But then when that was over, what was left? Love. And that now became the mission.
And it
so
was like
RomCom, maybe the last 15 minutes.
Part 3.
Part 4, right? But I think the movie, right, I don't know. I don't think he changed because of love. I think he changed, he changed because the love for himself grew. So if you count that.
And
I love this discussion.
This is where we get into Armageddon time territory for me. Of like, if you can't just cut and blank and say this is the theme, this is the movie, this is the point, and you have to hunt for it, you're like, are you just making stuff up?
Yes. But isn't that entertainment?
But isn't rom-com supposed to be quick and easy and like you could like?
You're supposed to know the big premise of it. That
Which
it's
is
a rom-com.
why I'm saying this is not a rom-com.
Right. Agree.
And I stand by saying I've never seen a Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks rom-com.
You need to.
Okay, that just takes away all of your authority in your statement.
But I have, and I do not deem this a rom-com. And I like what Lee was saying about, the minute that he had new purpose, right? It was like he knew he was going to die, and all of that actually let all the depression fade away because he didn't have to think that his life was going to continually be the way that it was, and he was stuck in that rut. So he was then liberated and able to move forward and actually be what's the word? Not be happy, but be excited about what was coming, because it's like, okay, what can I buy now? And okay, what can I do? And now, he was very service oriented. So the fact that he had something that he could strive towards and a goal made him feel better about himself, made him love himself more.
I fall back on repeat my senior thesis art school project,
Right.
based off both of what you guys have just said.
But that's partly why it's not a movie I would watch it again but I wouldn't jump to go see it. Like you said earlier, you mentioned The Rock. The Rock is always a pause. You stop and watch it. I don't care if you're walking to the airport. You stop and watch that movie for the soundtrack alone, right? The score in that movie alone makes the thing. This one is about learning maybe how to rethink things yourself, or a journey. I don't know. It's a journey film.
You bring up soundtrack, which is interesting because one, I didn't pay attention to any of the music that was done or if any of it was deliberate, but that's what I do remember about movies from the 80s and the 90s. They were very soundtrack centric, right? Oftentimes I feel like they picked the songs before they finished the movie, right? So,
Well, that was MTV.
yeah.
Right, that was the generation we were laughing about, that MTV's name is still MTV, and they still have that Sting tag that he sings, yet they haven't played a video in 10 years, right? But yeah, that was the era of you would pick the soundtrack, and I remember going to get albums from movies like, oh my gosh, it's great, the music, this album came out. And now obviously there's a different emphasis, but that it's funny that you say it, because I couldn't name a single song on the soundtrack of Joe versus Volcano or Armageddon Time for that matter.
And I'm usually very into, my phone is filled with movies, but I don't remember. So interesting.
All right, last question, second to last kind of. If somebody came to you and you have a brain cloud and they ask you to jump in a volcano, would you do it?
With the wonderful Google, I'd Google it first. So if you're asking if someone you're going to die because of brain cloud, and I would just accept an offer on the street, no.
No. Okay.
So you'd get a Google second opinion, or would that be a first opinion?
Probably a first opinion.
I would remember the that Queen Latifah movie. What was it called?
The Holiday.
The Holiday. Yeah, the Last Holiday or the Holiday. Yeah, something like that.
Maybe it's the Last
Holiday or something like that. Yeah, about how she was misdiagnosed, ends up blowing all of her savings on this really awesome trip, and then finds out that she's not going to die. And then I would say second opinion, and likely go to Google, and then possibly somebody else after Google.
So here's, obviously, we look at the movie, if most people would get a second opinion at a minimum, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just believing this person. But you guys didn't answer the question. So the question wasn't, would you get a second opinion? For me, if it was diagnosed and it was true, I would absolutely do this. You're solving a lot of birds with one stone here and having fun. I couldn't have that much fun going out. If I was going to die in a month, I was going to die in a month. Why not die having fun? But I would get a second opinion first.
Maybe a third.
Good point, Lee. So if the second opinion came back, yes, you're definitely a brain cloud, you're going to die. Especially if they gave me a whole bunch of money that I could then leave to my family.
Right. Yeah. And save the Wapoonies at the same time.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Random question. What was the official opening line of this movie? Does it hold true to your thesis?
I don't.
So yeah, the line does actually support my thesis. It's from Dan Hedaya. I know he can get the job, but can he do the job?
No. No, he says no, and then he repeats himself over and over.
Yeah.
I love that character, Dan Hedaya. Okay.
Yeah, I like him too.
That
last
character
question.
got so under my skin, it's not even funny.
He plays the same character in every movie he's in.
I agree.
But when you're good at it, be good at it.
Did your opinion change from what you said you thought of the movie at the beginning of this podcast?
That's a good question. No. I don't think it did. I mean, I see it from different light, and that's always fun. That's what's fun about these things, right? And a movie like this is, obviously, it's not a simple movie. It's a complex movie.
Yeah.
So getting different perspectives, a lot of people are going to take away different things from it, intentionally. But I don't think it changed my opinion of it. Mm-hmm. 1 to 5, or we're not there yet. Never mind.
No. You can admit what you're.
Oh, I was. As soon as you said 1 to 5, I said 3.
Oh, okay.
Right. I don't hate it, but I don't love it.
You are the first person we have ever met that is in the middle. People either hate this movie or love this movie. We have had one other person. Shout out to Angela Weber. She's the only person that loved this movie that we met. Everybody else hates it.
One of the things I know it's not the popular opinion, but I liked the 3 Meg Ryan characters. Mm-hmm. I didn't care about the characters. There wasn't that much depth in them to care. I cared as an actress. She did a really good job, and she made me irritated at both of those first characters, and that means she did her job.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 5 more 90 movies that has the same 2 actors in it.
And I don't. I know watch a unique perspective, but I don't have that. And it had fun elements, like Hammerhead Shark, the stupid little things, right? I had fun with it.
Yeah, him dancing on the, I wish I could remember that song because you guys were talking about the soundtrack and there was that song that he was dancing to. I liked him too. I liked the 3 characters. I loved when Dee Dee said something like, where are you? And he answers her and she says, I wish I was where you are. And I think that's where he's starting to kind of break open, because he's heard he has the brain cloud, and she sees this glimmer of, like you said, the depression, but there's the light, there's the way out. I want what he has, because he finally kind of had a little bit of life in him. It wasn't this drudgery that he was going to wake up the next day, rinse and repeat kind of. He finally had a way to go, and she was kind of like, I want to go where you're going, which to me almost made sense, like in this weird way, because it is portrayed by the same actress, that Dee Dee kind of does get to go with him. Not, but yes, that's how I took it.
So I feel like, again, it's one of those things. It's like when I want to watch a rom-com, I want it to be a rom-com from the beginning to the end. That's how I feel, right? If I want to watch stupid silly, right, like an Airplane, I know what I'm going into, like a Step Brothers, like a, one of those, any welfare or freaking movie there is, right? It was one of those. I know it's going to be a stupid, funny movie, right? That I potentially will like or not like at the end of it, but I'm going in with my eyes wide open, right? Where this one, I think, took me off guard because it didn't start off as a rom-com in my mind. And in the end, yes, there was love, right, that it found, but it was just kind of stupid, funny. It's silly. It was silly, basically, and it wasn't something that I was geared up to and would embrace. So I would rate it probably a 1.5. Not something that I would ever stop and watch or seek out, but I'm not so annoyed with it that I didn't want to watch it again to come on and be a guest with you guys.
Awesome. Any final thoughts?
I was in the same spot where I was definitely not a 3, but I would definitely can't confirm I was a 1. So like I'm thinking 1 or 2, so like 1.5. Yeah. And I think a more relevant, instead of the opening credits, if anyone's seen the TV show called Severance, it felt like the opening scene of this movie was like the Severance portion of Severance. Disassociated with everything else in real life.
Okay, so Superfans, RJ and Stacy, since you're 1.5, just imagining what if the entire film was of the same style as that last third. If let's say we just open on them washing up on the island, and then the rest of the film is the two of them as they go through the preparations and the leap into the volcano. Does that seem like that would be a more appealing film?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was just spending an hour and a half with that.
Yeah.
I would see not even an hour and a half.
Just the first.
What's the shortest movie?
short.
I was gonna say, what's the shortest movie there?
I mean, today that's about 90 minutes.
That commercially, right?
It just felt, the first portion, the first act, or whatever you want to call it, just felt so disattached. To the rest
It's
of it.
disconnected from the rest of it.
But I think that was on purpose. I mean,
Well, no, obviously it was on purpose.
I don't think the message would have been what it was without that.
I totally agree.
Well, I don't know. Again, I brought up the Queen Latifah movie,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they did that. To me, was like that tone was consistent throughout the movie and like part 3 of this movie, right? In that sense. So, and I enjoyed that movie.
Right.
I still believe we witnessed the character creation of Jennifer Coolidge.
So if we ever get her on the podcast, I'll try to ask that question.
Does no one know the real you? Are you just Angelica from Joe versus the Volcano?
Well, I think Bobcat Goldthwait doesn't speak like that normally. He has a regular voice. Bob Dylan used to be able to sing in a different way, so it was a conscious choice. So maybe Jennifer Coolidge was sitting at home. How do I break into Hollywood? Then she went to the movies for inspiration, saw this movie, and decided this is it. I'm going to stick with it.
Is it Larry the Cable Guy? His
Yes.
whole public persona is that.
Yeah, he's not even named Larry.
Yeah, hillbilly-esque persona character. When you actually have podcasts and conversations, interviews where he's just like a normal Joe,
Right.
And you couldn't even associate him with the character he pulls.
Well, that shows too how much costume department has an impact, because he puts on the sleeveless flannel shirt and the ball cap and he becomes Larry the Cable Guy, and he walks around town without that and nobody believes it. So from this movie, maybe we stop hiring so many actors. and we just put them in different wigs and clothes. We could save money.
How dare you?
I think the American Horror Story series as a franchise has done that for you.
They've already mined that savings.
All right. Thank you, everybody, again. Superfan RJ, Lee, and Stacy for coming on the podcast and helping us out with this. Thank you so much for your continued support. We're so excited that we've gotten to 100 episodes. We're excited about this next year with our theme. They've all made guesses, and they've not been correct about what the theme for January is. So keep those guesses coming in, and never forget,
Dodges never stop, and neither do the movies.
Thanks for listening to Dodge Movie Podcast with Christy and Mike Dodge of Dodge Media Productions. To find out more about this podcast and what we do, go to dodgemediaproductions.com. Subscribe, share, leave a comment, and tell us what we should watch next. Dodges never stop, and neither do the movies.